Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. My name is Madhavananda Das. These are our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, this is our 32nd session we're calling Meeting in Kuruksetra. And today we're going to speak about Krishna's message of love that he gave to Uddhava. We'll start with a few prayers. Gora Graganya Gana Gocha Goloruharam Goranga Gudatama Gopyada Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Narayanam Namaskrityam Naramschaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayat Vedi Ramayaneshchaiva Purane Bhadate Tata Adavante Chamadyecha Hari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Mangum Langayate Girim Yakripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikori be chakadolan, se chakadolanka paraye, manamo rahu nirantare, manamo nirantare rahu. Ha Krishna, boli jiva jao, ha Krishna, boli jao jiva. Mote udara radha dava, mote udara radha dava, mote udara radha dava. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning to devotees. Nice to see Brajanu Kumar Prabhu here, and Brinda Sundari and Sanjay, Hare Krishna Lisa. Thank you for all attending. So, today is our 32nd session on this topic we're calling Meeting in Kuruksetra. And we want to speak something today about Krishna's message of love that he gave to Uddhava. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, this is Canto 10, Chapter 46, Text 2. Tam aha bhagavan preshtam bhaktam ekantinam kvachit Grihitva panina panim prapanarti haro hari. The Supreme Lord Hari, who relieves the distress of all who surrender to him, once took the hand of his fully devoted dearmost friend Uddhava and addressed him as follows. Grihitva panina panim. Krishna took him by the hand, a very, very sweet way. This, if you want to speak to someone in a very intimate way, then you grab a hold of their hand. So we heard in our last session how Krishna began to speak about his mother. And we spoke something about how Krishna is not a brahmachari, but he's a mamachari. He's very, very attached to his mother. And we told a number of stories in that regard. And how Krishna told Uddhava, the prema vyaptam brajamanu bhavita hritkatam me nasaktam. That how can my mind not be attracted by Braj, which is permeated with the fragrance of the prema of my mother? And in the Gopal Champu, we'll continue with what Jiva Goswami tells there. Astam sa sa satta tamasu balalana mayam syuha siksha rupam yad arachito yad bandhanam tanmadadha smaram smaram dalati balavad yena tasman kimchid dartum shakyam bhavati nitaram apalkam va mahadva. Krishna speaks to Uddhava about his mother. Mothers are so important. He says, and what to speak of caring for us, as though it were her own personal life. Siksha rupam yaracharitu toya bandhanam tanmadanta. She also didn't hesitate, bandhanam, to tie me up with ropes. That's to teach me that I shouldn't waste money, that I shouldn't waste wealth. And what is a wealth? That wealth is the milk products of Braj. And what is that wealth? It's not ordinary milk products. Therefore, Mother Yashoda, why did she get up and stop nursing Krishna, doing that service, to go and stop the boiling pot of milk? Because that milk, that was a service of the cows, that was the service of that milk personified, according to Sanatana Goswami. And Mother Yashoda, she put more stress on that service because that service with love. So to teach Krishna, don't waste this love. This is the real wealth of Braj. Mother Yashoda tied him up with ropes. And Krishna says, Smaram, smaram, dalati balavadina tasmit kimchit. When I remember this, then my heart bursts open. And he says that, Dartam saktim bhavati nitaram mapalkam va mahadva. No one else can do this to me. Not to a small degree, nor to a great degree. Nobody else has this Shakti that my mother has. And Krishna goes on to tell Uddhava, Chapalyama paryasin mama sisu rasako balyata swaya bhavad evam badastvai toyaham sakradapi yad ayam tena badyosmi nityam astam etachat tasmadapi pitri charana mochayam sur etam sasram mam chataptenapyaham mahaha siddhabandam eva prayami. So Krishna, he said that from my youth, I was very, very independent. And Mother Yashoda, my mother, she tied me up. I mean, she tied me up one time. But evam bhadastvayaham sakradapi ayam tena bhadasmi nityam. Bhadasmi nityam. Although she tied me up one time, bhadasmi nityam, I'm always bound up with her love. And we spoke in our last session about those ropes from a beautiful verse of Lalita Madhav, where Rupa Goswami describes a conversation between Krishna and a Sakhi named Navabrinda Devi in Vrindavan in Dwarka. And where she asked Krishna, Nalakuvara, Malakuvara, Manigriva, they were released from you, they were released from this form of trees by you, so why didn't they just come and untie the ropes which are binding you to the grinding mortar? And Krishna explained them to them. Those are not ordinary ropes. Those are the ropes of my mother's love. And what to speak of others, I can't untie those ropes. What to speak of other people. So here, Jiva Goswami says that Krishna told Uddhava, Astam etachchatasmat apipitu charana mochayam suretam. That it was my Pita, my father, who mochayamsur, who gave me that liberation, untied the ropes. Nanda Maharaj, he could untie those ropes. No one else could do that. And he says, I'm also sadabandameva prayami. I'm also eternally bound up by that act of him untying me. I'm also bound up by that. And Krishna tells Uddhava that eva pasani drisam, drisam means to see, when they saw me, They feel so much happiness. And when they would hear Shutadye, when they would hear the sound of my voice, they would feel very, very happy. He says, what else can I say? When I would eat, then they felt very satisfied. In other words, they were so one with Krishna that when Krishna would eat, Mother Yashoda would feel very, very happy. And we see this in the lives, even in this material world, that a mother feels so much satisfaction when she sees her children eating. So much love. They become like one in the heart. Sometimes the wife becomes so happy when she sees her husband eating something. And Krishna says, Tomat prano vina makatanta eva pitaro prani tastan najani. I don't know. How are my parents going to keep their prana, their life, vina makatam, without me? He said that I'm their very life. And this hope that I gave them, I promised them ayashya. I promised them that I would return. This hope is giving them life. But if I don't return, then their life has no meaning. And then Krishna goes on to Uddhava to explain, it's not just my mother. Asatam pitaro chatosaki jana sambadina sevaka gava kimcha mrigadi jiva nivaha sarve mad ekashraya etat kena na manyatam sabhagavan brahmapi mamuchivan yadamarta surit priyatama chanaya pranayasas tvatkrite. And Krishna says, it's not just my father and mother. Asatam pitarocha to saki jana. I'm the only shelter of my friends. I'm the only shelter of my relatives. And my servants, and the cows, and the animals. Most people, they can't understand this. He says, but even Lord Brahma has told me that all of the Brijbasis, Lord Brahma, he can see that all their wealth, their friends, their dear ones, their very souls, their life heirs, everything are only dedicated to me. And then Krishna says a very interesting thing. Hare Krishna Garrison, nice to see you. He says, Manye Gokula Sambhavam Pitti Mukham Prema Lambanam Janam Bimbam. Bimba means a reflection. Bimbam tat pratibimba, bimba means the origin, and pratibimba means the reflection. Bimbam tat pratibimbam eva purajam yachanubhuti pramam. He says that I think, Manye, that my father and the Brijbasis who are residing in Vrindavan and who are Prevambalam Janam, who are personalities who are just the abodes of praying. I think they're the bimba. They're the origin. And tat pratibimba e purajam, the persons who are living here in Mathura, they're the reflections. Now this is a theme that Jiva Goswami speaks about quite a bit in his Gopal Champa. It's also a theme which is brought out more in Lalita Madhav of Rupa Goswami, where Rupa Goswami says a very amazing thing. There's a very amazing thing Jiva Goswami is saying, that what is the biggest mystery in Krishna Leela? What is the biggest unresolved thing in Krishna Leela? Our Goswamis have taken that subject up. What is that topic? How is it that Krishna left Vrindavan? And how is it that Krishna supposedly loves the Brijbasis more than anyone else, but he leaves them? And then he goes and he stays in Mathura and Dwarka. Wouldn't he return? Okay, there's a few vague references in the Bhagavatam that give some hint that Krishna returned to Vrindavan. Sometimes the Dwarkabasis in the first canto of the Bhagavatam is a statement. They say something, whenever you leave and you go to Vrindavan, or this place or that place, and we miss you. There's some vague description In the Padma Purana, there's a little description given about it. But most people don't see that little thing in the Bhagavatam. Most people don't know about the statement in the Padma Purana. And even if we know about that, how is it that Krishna was going and staying there? So it's a very esoteric topic, which Rupa Goswami describes in Lalita Madhav. He says that the gopis of Braj, they directly become the queens in Dwarka. And he says this 3 times in Lalita Madhav. He says they're not expansions. They're direct manifestations. Sanatana Goswami says a similar thing in his Brihad Vaishnava Toshani. And there's a nice book called Advaita Mangal by, I can't remember his name, a disciple of Advaita Acharya, which also describes a similar thing, that the original form, let's put it this way, just as Krishna is Purna, Purnatara, and Purnatama. He's complete in Dwarka, more complete Purnatara in Mathura, and Purnatama, most complete in Braj. And also this is described in the Gaura Govinda Smarnarchana Padidi by Jan Chandra Goswami, that just as Krishna has these 3 different qualities, Purna, Purnatara, and Purnatama, complete, most complete, so similarly do his associates. They're complete in Dwarka. They're more complete in Mathura, and they're the most complete in Braj. And they expand themselves. There's some Shakti. That's a very difficult thing to understand. One of the biggest questions the devotees always have in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is, how is it Kavi Karnapur says things like that Ramananda Roy is a combined incarnation of Vishaka, of Arjuna, a gopi, of the Saka in Braj named Arjuna Saka, and the Panchapandava Arjuna. 4 different persons in one. We sometimes comment as, how many feet can you fit in one shoe? It's a confusing thing. I thought the jivas didn't merge with each other, and how do we understand that? Kavi Karnapur doesn't directly explain it. But here, Jiva Goswami is giving us some hint. Bimbam tat pratibimbam eva purajam. That the original form is in Braj. And the reflection, the pratibimba, is in Mathura. So, how this works is a very esoteric, subtle thing. I wouldn't say that it means directly that there's 4 different jiva souls within the body of Ramananda Roy, but there's some Shakti there. In the same way as we were speaking a few sessions ago about Vishram Bena Guru Seva, about how the disciple becomes one with Guru, and how the Guru actually enters into the heart of that disciple. But at the same time, Advaitam Cha Parityagya. Sanatana Goswami and Hari Bhakti Vilas says, don't go around telling everybody you're non-different from your Guru. You shouldn't think like that. Wait a minute. Vishram Bena Guru Seva, the Guru enters into your heart, isn't that person the same? Other people may respect. We respect Prabhupada disciples like that because we see Prabhupada in them. I had the good fortune, actually we met one disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in Puri, and I gave him a magazine. He said, oh, you're making this magazine. I gave him he was very fond of Puri, and he said, oh, this is so nice. And later he phoned from the temple and asked me to come to see him, and he wanted to speak some things to me about Puri, some esoteric kind of things. So I was very fortunate in that way. And I saw in him Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that he's entered into him. Doesn't mean that I think he's non-different. Doesn't mean that I think all the disciples of Srila Prabhupada are non-different from Prabhupada. If you think like that, you're going to have a big headache. Because there's been stuff's happened sometimes. Not everybody has lived up to that. But still, we see that to some extent or another. So Rupa Goswami describes that, but in this case they directly become, and that's, to try to describe the Lalita Madhav is something which would take us a number of sessions. It's a very big topic. We may try to approach that something in our discussions here. Probably it won't go on for another I wouldn't think for another 10 sessions or something. I think there's probably going to be 50 or something sessions of this discussion or more before we finally, it's a very, very big topic. So Krishna's saying like this. He says that I think that my father and the others, the Brijbasis, they're the bimba, and the residents of Mathura, they're pratibimba. They're just reflections of that love. And he says that I have some pramana for that. My pramana is my own personal experience. Well, he says, when I experience the people of Braj, I don't think about the residents of Mathura. They don't come to my mind. But when I experience the love of the devotees of Mathura, then I remember the residents of Braj. One is Bimba and the other is Pratibimba. He says, but even though this is a fact, Satyam, he says, even though this is a Satyam, this is a fact, still, Uddhava, you have to go there as my representative. And you have to go there and you have to consider. He says, Gacha Taptupa Gacha, you have to go to that place. But you have to consider very carefully. Bata Rahasi Matam Sikshate Tad Vicharya. Vichar means to consider. You have to consider very carefully. Mahendra Prabhu, nice to see you. I'm sorry, this is the best sound that we can do. Maybe I'll try to speak louder. We have this fancy sound thing here today, but that's the best I can do with it. So Krishna says that to Uddhava, so now you have to consider very carefully this rahasi matam, that these very confidential sikshate instructions that I've given you, tad vicharya. You consider this, and then I want you to go and you give happiness to everyone there, and then sapuna, afterwards, sokyameva prayacha, you come back here and you give happiness to me. And you give happiness to the residents of Mathura. This is what it means to be a preacher. We spoke about this before. It means that we have to cross the bridge to the spiritual world. And once we're in that spiritual world, then we can go back and we can take whatever we got in that spiritual realm, whatever we've gotten from Gurudev. And hearing that Krishna Katha, that's Vrindavan. Whatever we've gotten in that association with the devotees and Sri Guru of Vrindavan, then we cross back over the bridge and we can give happiness to the devotees on the other side of that bridge. And then Krishna tells Uddhava, he says, Te sandesha hara moya puratara prastapita kinpami. That previously I sent some sandesh, some instructions with different messengers. He says, but sandesham param ugiranti nadia kinchid vedanti swayam. But they didn't really speak the real message. Whoa. Very interesting thing. Krishna's saying, I sent messages. And we heard about this from Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu. And we read those letters that Krishna sent. We heard about how Krishna, when he was in Mathura, and he found out that Vasudeva was going to perform the Upanayana Samskar, or the thread ceremony for Krishna, which is like the bar mitzvah. We can compare it. It's like when the child grows up in the Jewish tradition. The parents have to do that ceremony. And it's the parents who do that, who put on that festival. So Krishna thought to himself, now, when Nanda Maharaj hears about this, he's going to feel disturbed. Because it means that now Krishna thinks I'm not his son anymore. Now he's the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. So Krishna sent a message to Nanda Maharaj. Don't think like that, Father. And you should do the same thing there in Vrindavan. But I'm not there. How will you do it? And Krishna said, no problem. You take one of my sakhas, one of my friends, because they're non-different than me in the ways that we've been speaking about. And you do that Upanayana Samskara with them, because the Vaishyas also do that, as well as the Kshatriyas. So Krishna tells Uddhava, previously I sent so many messengers, but they didn't speak the real message. That's pretty amazing. Krishna personally sent them. Krishna personally told them what to say. But Krishna is now telling Uddhava they didn't give the real message. What does it mean? It has a very, very deep purport, as we've been pointing out in this session, some previous sessions. What is the meaning of preaching, of prachar? It's not just that you go and mechanically say something. You can go to the university and someone can give a class, some professor can speak about the history of the Hare Krishna movement. And this personality's name was A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and how he crossed the ocean and he brought these books and he began the Hare Krishna movement. You can hear about that. And you might become a little inspired hearing about Srila Prabhupada. But it's not the same as if you hear Jamuna or one of my favorites, Brahmananda Prabhu, speaking about Srila Prabhupada, or Harisari Prabhu, someone who had so much association, someone who's done so much service for Srila Prabhupada. It's not the same. So this is what Krishna is telling Uddhava. Previously I sent so many messengers, but they didn't give the real message. And he says to Uddhava, he says they were speaking from their intelligence. Diya. They were speaking from their diya. But Kincha Vedanti Swayam, not Kincha. It wasn't Swayam. It wasn't really the real deal. They weren't really understanding what I was saying. So he says, how can I give some instruction to you? Kim Vacham. How can I speak to you? Because you're a disciple. Vachaspate Sishyatam, your disciple Brihaspati. He says, giving a little hint to Uddhava. That Uddhava, this isn't like when you took Bhakti Shastri and you managed to pass the test and you memorized everything that Brihaspati told you. This is not a message like that. This is a message of love. As my Guru Maharaj spoke in the book we made called Mathura Meets Vrindavan. And then as described in this verse, we're reading from the Bhagavatam, Atatena Sanjitam Anjalim Eva Kanja Netra Pramishya Drishya Kripa Vilasastam Anudatta Harsha. Krishna, he took Uddhava's hands. He gave Uddhava mercy. He gave Uddhava some great joy. Kripa Vilasa, some very wonderful mercy in that way. And then Krishna took him. Sankarshana Samipam. He took him to Balaram. And he explained to Balaram, this is the man. He's going to go with my message. The same thing happened in Jagannath Puri, in the place we now know as Siddhabakul, which is the bhajan place, bhajan stali of Srila Haridas Thakur. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced Rupa Goswami to Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu had already met him in Ramakeli, but he introduced him to all the devotees. Nityananda Prabhu was there, and Advaita and Mukunda, and so many great devotees, Ramananda Roy and Srup Damodar and others. And he said, this is Rupa, and I want all of you to give your mercy to him, because he has a very special service. He's going to be my messenger. He's going to take this message of love. And therefore we say that Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitami Bhutale. The Rupa Goswami was able, Stapitami Bhutale, to establish this mission because Sri Chaitanya Manobhishta, he understood the message of Mahaprabhu. And because he got the full blessings of all the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is a significant point from many different directions. It's not that those devotees thought, what is this? Who is it? This guy's just a kid. He hasn't been around you. He wasn't one of the devotees in Navadvip. He doesn't know you. They could have thought like that. The devotees who had come from Navadvip to Puri, seeing the mercy that Mahaprabhu was giving Rupa Goswami and Mahaprabhu's request that all the devotees bless Rupa Goswami, they could have become envious. They could have said, this is not right. I'm senior to him. You should let me do it. Even Ramananda Roy was there. Vishaka Saki, Srup Damodar, who's Alita Saki, were there. But Mahaprabhu gave this message to Rupa Goswami. He said, you give this. And he wanted all the devotees to bless him. So Krishna took Uddhava by the hand. and brought him to Balaram and said, he's going to Vrindavan, so you have to give a special blessing to him. And then, along with Balaram and Uddhava, they went to Rohini. And they also told her the same thing. We're going to send this fellow, this young boy. He's my age, he's my cousin, we should say. We're going to send him to Vrindavan. And we also need your blessings for this. This way also Krishna's teaching us we should take the full blessings of all the devotees. Even if you have the direct sakshat ashirvad, the direct blessing of Krishna himself. Krishna's teaching us it's not enough. Yeah? And who is he first taking Uddhava to? Balaram, who's Adi Guru. Even if Krishna directly comes and says, you go and do this, say, Krishna, I also need the blessings of my Gurudev. It's not enough. My Guru Maharaj used to say that Mahaprabhu, he gave this instruction, Yari Deki Tade Kaha Krishna Upadesh, that you go and you give this Krishna consciousness to everyone. You become a guru. My Guru Maharaj said that instruction didn't come to me. That instruction came to my Gurudev. He's fit for that instruction. I'm not fit for that instruction. But I'm serving my Gurudev. I'm serving him. He has that instruction. So we should, even if we have the direct instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, still we should take the blessings of all the devotees. And Jiva Goswami says there, Matur Sarvi Militva Chedam Veda Mayusu. All the people gathered there together. And they told Uddhava that yet Vrindavanam Tirtha Vrindartameva Swagamanam Atyavagamanam Iti. That you're going there for all of the people of Vrindavan. You're going there to please them. And at that time, Krishna was thinking to himself, he said, Ata Shri Krishna Praha, Avayor Guru Pasyartam, that to serve our Guru, we went far away. And if the residents of Vrindavan, they hear something about that, Jadi means if, Jadi Kim Vadanti Brajepi Vadantai Vasyat. If the Brijbasis hear that we went far away, they're going to become very, very disturbed. So you should tell them at that time, no, it's okay. Krishna and Balaram are very close. They've not gone far away. You should keep this in your mind. Swasiddhanta manasi. He says, this swa means this. Swasiddhantam, this siddhanta. You keep this in your mind, Uddhava. And you go there and you speak to my mother and my father. Rupa Goswami, in the 8th verse of Uddhava Sandesh, he describes Krishna's words to Uddhava. Tasyanche te jagati bhavastvad vidanam vidatum chetam purtim nanu janapada murti birme satata bhuya bhuyo bhuya priyasaka sapitubhyam ajajatoham buranya me hridi sukha kori gostata kapinasti. He says, my dear friend, Priyasaka, because you're my dear friend, I'm going to speak this to you. I couldn't speak this to anyone else. Rahashyam, Krishna says in the Gita to Arjuna, Rahashyam, because you're my I'm going to speak this Rahasya Katha to you, because you're my dear intimate friend. I can't hear you. Okay, anyway. He says, because you're my very dear friend, I'm telling you this. Sape, I vow to you. You should understand. Ayajata, I'm not telling you any lie. Okay, there are many different holy places. And they're all partial manifestations of myself. And there are places that I've created just to please devotees like you. He says, but Satyam, I vow to you again and again. I'm not lying to you. There's no other holy place better than Vrindavan. There's no other place. He says, Sukha Kori Goshtata. That Goshtata, that Braj, Sukha Kori, there's no other place. Anya me Hridi Sukha Kori, which gives happiness to me in my heart, like Vrindavan. You should understand this, Uddhava. Madvislesha Jvalana Patali Jvalaya Jarjanagaha Save Tasmin Nidana Padavim Sakino Pyashashrishun Gopi Nechavali Vigalitire Buribir Bashpavaram Puraistesham Yadi Niravadir Nabhisheko Tarishiti. He says that he uses the word jadi, if. He says if they weren't always crying so much, and their tears weren't drenching all of Vrindavan, then all of Braj would have long ago had a great forest fire. And all the trees and everything in Braj would have burned to ashes by the Vipralamba Agni, by the fire of the Gopis' separation. The only reason that fire didn't burn everything to the ground is because of the tears of the Gopis. In Braj, if you've been to Braj, you know the water there is very, very salty. And people, if they want to get sweet water, they have to dig a deep well to get that. According to tradition in Braj, there's a reason why that water is so salty. Because the Gopis cried so much in separation from Krishna that their salty tears entered into the ground and they made the water there salty. Krishna tells Uddhava, Atma klesha api nahitata me ruptuya vyatante balavyasta priya sakayata madhyata leshatopi devara me viraha vihitam ninu vanastad artim prema krantim tvam arti pritulam tasu vikyapayataha. He said, my dear friend, even though their sufferings, their klesha, the sufferings that they have, he says that tata meru tulya, they're equal, they're as big as Mount Meru. The sufferings that they go through. But still, he said, they're not suffering as much as myself. When I feel just a tiny lesha, just a tiny little speck of their suffering. He says, therefore, when you go to speak to them, don't tell them that I was crying. Don't speak to them about my suffering. Because if you do, then they're going to feel even more terrible. Rather, he says, you should tell them that I'm bound up with great ropes of love for them. And why is he stressing this particular point? That I'm bound up by this gruntim. Rupa Goswami uses the word gruntim, by this knot of love, to indicate to the gopis that I can't leave you. I have to come back. I'm bound up. In the Bhagavatam, in the 3rd verse, in the 46th chapter, the 10th canto, Krishna tells Uddhava, Gachodava Brajam, Gachodava Brajam. Uddhava, you go to Vrindavan. Gachodava Brajam. Somya Pitro no Pitchamavaha Gopinam Nad Vyogadim Mad Sandeshaya Vimochaya. He says, my dear, gentle Uddhava, you're Somya. This is your qualification. This is a qualification of a devotee. Sometimes we think that the qualification of a devotee is to be a very angry person. And to chastise everyone. My Guru Maharaj would chastise people very heavily. But he told us, you can't imitate this. Because the Padma Purana describes, Ashradadani Vimukhe Prashinvati Yaschopadesha Shiva Nama Paradha. If someone has these 3 qualities, they're Ashraddha. They don't have faith in you. They're Vimukh. Their face is turned away. They're just not interested in what you have to say. Ashradadani Vimukhi Prashinvati. They don't want to listen to you. Ashradadani Vimukhi Prashinvati Yashopadesha. You can't give them Shiva, Upadesh Shiva. You can't give auspicious instructions to them. If you try, it's an aparad. This is an offense to the holy name. And indirectly, that person is trying to imitate Guru. I've marked today, I was thinking about this morning. Vaisheshkava was saying something which I thought was very wise recently. I heard that he was commenting how in the world today, people have no shelter. They've lost all faith in everyone. They have no faith in anyone. Huh? Few people have faith in Mr. Trump, but most of them don't in America. And the people who have faith in Mr. Trump, they definitely don't have faith in the Democrats. They don't have faith even maybe in the democratic system in America. And you go to Australia, you go to New Zealand, you go to Germany, you go to England. Hell, you go to devotees in ISKCON. People don't have faith in the leaders. And there's so much complaint. But what's happening? There's a space which is needed because people need to have some leader. So what's happening is people, then they're pushing themselves forward saying, listen to me. Can't listen to him, but you can listen to me. Indirectly, if we're doing like that, it means we're trying to take the role of the leader. We're trying to take the role of the guru. And it doesn't work. Unless that person has faith in you, unless they're turned to you, if they're vimukh, they're turning their face away from you. Vimukh means literally turning their face away from you. Unless if they're ashradhan, they don't have faith in you. If they're vimukh, if they're prashindati, they don't want to hear from you. You can't speak to them. And if you try that, it's artificial. And the very same people you're complaining about, this person's an artificial leader. They're just trying to control everybody. They're just pushing themselves into that. Well, aren't you doing the same thing? By pushing your opinion. If someone wants to hear it, if someone wants to hear a katha, then we can speak something. But if they don't want to hear, what is the point? How can we speak anything? My Guru Maharaj said this many times to me personally, several times. I remember him speaking in big temples with many devotees. And afterwards he would come and he would say, nothing was coming out. Because they're vimukh. They're ashradhan. They don't have faith in him. They're vimukh. They're turned away. They're prashindati. They don't want to hear. So what can you do? What can you say? But he could have sat there and said, look, I'm a sannyasi. I'm a Prabhupada. He said, don't you know I'm a GBC? I'm a guru. I'm going to hit you with a stick. You have to listen to me. He didn't do that. And he didn't even do that with his own disciples. I saw. He would tell them, any way you want to do that, you go and do that. And he would speak to us sometimes about what is vanchana, what is cheating. When you're not coming to the sadhu and asking the sadhu, what do I want? But you're coming to him and telling him. So it's the same kind of thing. We're cheating ourselves. If we want to artificially take the role of the messenger of Krishna. So Krishna here, he's telling Uddhava, your qualification is not that you're such an angry person. Your qualification is not that you can yell real loud and chastise everybody and point out the faults of everybody. Your qualification is you're soumya. You're gentle. That's an important qualification. Because when we meet a Vaishnava who's genuinely soumya, who's genuinely very humble. Once I remember my Guru Maharaj, we were having some discussion. I was speaking with him. And he turned to me and he said, have you ever seen a blue lotus? And he's my guru. I said, and he's asking me like in a friendly kind of way. And I said, no, Guru Maharaj. Another time, I remember we were in France and one Mataji made some dalma for Guru Maharaj. And Guru Maharaj was taking it and he asked me, he said, what are these lumps, these things in the dalma? And I said, I don't know, Guru Maharaj, I'll go and ask. And I went and asked Mataji and this is what she said. It's artificial meat. I'm not going to go and tell my Guru Maharaj, tell him that. That's horrible. So I went and told him it's something made out of soybeans, Guru Maharaj, which is what it was. And Guru Maharaj took it. But he asked me, he said, is this okay? Before he took it, he asked me, he said, is it okay for us to take this? And I'm thinking, he's my guru. Huh? What am I supposed to do? But he's soumya. He's so sweet and so gentle in his behavior that even though he's superior to me in every way, even though he's my spiritual master, I follow his instructions still. He's Somya. He's so gentle that he's asking my opinion. I stopped for a moment. I didn't know what to say. And I thought, well, he's asking me. He said, is it okay for us to take? I said, yes, Grandma, as far as I understand, it's okay. Huh? He didn't take it the next day. He wouldn't do it. But I answered him according to my understanding. Huh? And that's the quality of Somya. And this is a quality of Uddhava. So therefore Krishna is saying, Gachodava Bhajam Somya. That because you're Somya, I want you to go to Vrindavan. Pitto na prittamavaha. You speak to my parents. And then Gopinam mad viyoga dim mat sandeshar vimochaya. You go to the gopis who are suffering in separation and you give them my message. Hare Krishna, Nanta Gauranga Prabhu. I thought you were in Mathura right now, helping the old ladies. Maybe he's on his phone or something. Mahendra Prabhu. So I'm going to stop here, and in our next session we're going to speak about Krishna's words to the gopis, and we want to go to a wonderful book, which we had the good fortune of doing a little service to compile. The book is called Mathura Meets Vrindavan, and it's a collection of lectures from our Guru Maharaj, where he speaks about Krishna's message to the gopis of Vrindavan. So I want to stop here. If anybody has any reflections, there's nothing so far online. If anybody online has anything you're walking away with that you can share with us, so that impressed you today, that you'd like to keep with you, please type that in. Otherwise, anybody here? Any reflection from anybody? You have Krishna Kun, you have something? I'm going to spin the space ball around and put it on general, so if you speak real loud, everybody should be able to hear you. Real loud. Okay. Like that, like practically yelling.
Hare Krishna. Is that good enough?
Okay, do like that.
Thank you. I love this part when Krishna says that I vow that there is no other place that gives me such pleasure as Vrindavan. And I like it so much because we know this, we hear this, but it emphasizes the point that the reason we want to go to Vrindavan is not because we want to be in the highest place. It's because it gives the highest pleasure to Krishna. Oh. And this is very, like from my own spiritual life, this is very important to think about.
Yes. Huh? Krishna Kun is from a wonderful place called Hungary. And I'm supposed to be her husband, even though I'm not qualified. But wasn't it pleasing to you when I went to your country?
Yeah.
Your place? Yeah. Oh, now he's going to get to know about me, isn't it? Huh? Urugai Prabhu, you've been to Mauritius? Yeah, she's very pleasing. He knows about me something. Huh? When someone goes to our native place, Ananta Gauranga Prabhu, wow, you're all pervading. We thought you were in Mathura. Huh? Okay. When someone wants to go to our home, that touches our heart. And Krishna's like this. Krishna, he's touched. If you go to my place, as Krishna Kun is saying, that's very pleasing to me. You had something more, Krishna Kun?
This word Somya is just such an important, it's one of my favorite words, seriously. In the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, it's 118, I just looked it up. In the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, Vetatvam tatas Somya tat Vetatvam Somya tat Savatat Tadanugabha. That because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the mercy.
I hope everybody can hear you okay. Because of your song that he's saying in this first canto of the Bhagavatam.
One gentle disciple. So that was also the qualification of Shukala Goswami and
nice point. So if you can't hear Krishna Kun, she's pointing out that in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, the same word Somya is used, and this is a qualification of Sukadeva Goswami. No, Sutta Goswami, that he is submissive. Sutta Goswami is submissive? No, the listeners who are submissive. Anyway, this is a qualification of the disciple, with the Somya.
Sutta Goswami, of course. And Prabhupada translates it there as simple and humble.
Prabhupada translates it as simple and humble. So Brenda Sundari, who's from the distant place where I used to stay, Denver, Colorado, she asked an interesting question. How do we cultivate friendship with Krishna? Well, how do we cultivate friendship with anyone? If I want to be friends with that very famous Sankirtan devotee who was always doing Harinam in Mayapur. His name is Ananta Gauranga, but I never got, maybe I just heard about him on Facebook, but I never got to meet him. How can I can just walk up to him and say, hi, I'm your friend. Doesn't work like that. Huh? But the way to become friends, you find out who his friend is. And you make friends with his friend. You find if you have someone in common that you both know, we both have some common friends. And to those friends, then we can come closer to that person. So this is a principle of Sadhu Guru. We make friendship with Krishna. We come close to Krishna by making friends with Gurudev. We can't separate the two. Mahashakti's online. Oh my God. Nice to see you today. Huh? Sharman O'Brien. And she says, even though we're still conditioned with material consciousness, can we cultivate friendship with him? Well, yes and no. It's not that sentimentally we think, yes, Krishna's my drug, they say in Russian. He's my friend, my buddy, mi amigo. No, it's not. It's not like that. We can't artificially think like that. But at the same time, if I'm friends with Gurudev, I have some connection with Gurudev. And Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, he says that Guru Sorida, we should have a firm attitude of friendship with Gurudev. Then Krishna appreciates that. Sanjay Prabhu comments, he says, I was, trying to work the device here. He says, I was inspired to know that such a great devotee, like Gaur Govinda Maharaj said, that the instruction of Jari Deki Tarikaha has not come to me. That was, of course, I feel like that instruction has come to him, but he's teaching us. He's showing us humility, and he's teaching us that don't think this is my instruction. I'm not the Guru. My Gurudev is the Guru, and I'm assisting my Gurudev. And he was thinking like that even with his service of accepting disciples. Prabhupada himself used to say that my Guru Maharaj has sent all of you. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would offer obeisances to his disciples. Sanjay Prabhu commented further. There it is. Also, it was very inspiring to hear how one should not impose himself upon others who are not willing to listen. The qualification of being Somya is also very wonderful. Thank you very much for giving deeper understanding of Krishna consciousness. This is an important principle. It's a principle for our community, for our society, that we're going to create a disturbance if I try to push myself forward and tell everybody, okay, everybody listen to me, this is a real tattva, don't listen to the GBC, don't listen to the senior devotees, I know better. It's just going to create a disturbance, because then everybody else is going to want to do the same thing. At least let one person take the burden, the unpleasant burden of being a manager. And if you don't like to hear from that person, you don't have faith in that person, you're Ashradadani, you're Vimuk, you're Prashanvati with them, that's okay. Just then don't fake it. You keep to yourself, you hear from some other person. And this qualification of Somya, ultimately though, is for our benefit. Because if I thrust myself into the lives of people and I insist that I'm your instructor and this is right and this is wrong and this is the real deal right here and everybody's cheating and I'm the only one who knows the real tattva about this, it's going to create a disturbance for me. Because then somebody else is going to come along and say, no, you don't really know the real deal. I know the real deal. You're bogus. And then there's going to be a big clash. And it's going to disturb my bhajan. Far better just to be humble and gentle. Far better to follow the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and be amanina manadena. And give all respect to others and don't demand respect. And then we can always do our bhajan. Hare Krishna. Mahendra Prabhu for the comment. Yes, Sri Guru is the connector between Jiva and the Lord. Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else have any reflection? Anything you want to share? Sahadev Prabhu?
You mentioned the inhabitants of Mathura and Dwarka. They're coming from the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So it's like similar like in Braj and in Navadvip. All the inhabitants of Braj have appeared with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his pastimes. Is it the same in Mathura and Dwarka?
It's a technical topic, and there's some difference because Vrindavan is non-different from Navadvip is non-different from Vrindavan. Whereas there's some difference between Dwarka and Vrindavan, between Mathura and Vrindavan. But the quality that Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami is speaking about here is that there's some reflection. The Bimba, the original item, is in Vrindavan. And who is the original item of all bhakti? It's Srimati Radharani. It's confirmed. And her Shakti is bhakti. She's Bhakti Devi. She personified. And so some reflection of that, the original form of that is in Vrindavan. And some reflection of that manages to get to Mathura. And then another reflection goes to Dwarka. It's not, the potency is not the same. It's Purna or Purnattara, but it's not Purnattama, as we find in Vrindavan. It's a big topic and very subtle. Okay, Krishna Kun, you have something more?
Yeah, I have something which I think is so important for ISKCON because I feel that we don't take it seriously
Okay,
enough.
everybody should listen to you. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that.
How Krishna took Uddhava to Balaram and to Rohini, and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked all the devotees to bless Rupa Goswami. Because I feel that we often emphasize how we have to depend on the holy name and our spiritual master, we have to follow Guru's instruction. And but one thing we don't emphasize maybe enough is how we have to get the mercy of all the devotees.
Yes.
And that book that you often put, is it Nayananda Thakur who says this? That after the first two, you have to associate with devotees also. That's the most important.
Yeah.
Like, it's equally important.
Prema Vilas.
Prema Vilas.
Okay, so we're going to stop there. Today is Sunday, and our next session will be on Wednesday. So thank everybody very much for taking part. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam.